Secret Rose Christmas set by Seconda. Sponsors: Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
We've been given exclusive access to Sir Cliff Richard in one of the most important periods of his 60-year career.
60 years in show business is impossible for most people.
Cliff is one of those people that the whole culture should embrace.
Just before the Beatles, he was Britain's greatest solo male rock and roll star.
This wholesome heartthrob has sold well over 250 million records to become the Peter Pan of pop.
He was clean cut, he was the boy next door, and he had this enormous charm.
However, the last 4 years have been the toughest of his life. An accusation of sexual assault has threatened to destroy his well-crafted image.
The search of Sir Cliff Richard's home followed allegations he sexually assaulted a 15-year-old boy.
I do not have any hint of that kind of activity in my background. None at all.
Cliff's been through stuff which would break many a man.
It shook me rigid. I can't explain how bad it felt.
With decades in the public eye, his private life has always been the subject of intense speculation.
People are always speculating on who he really is.
The media was so fixated on his love life.
I quite like the word enigma. You know, I don't see why people should know everything about you.
We have been with him throughout his fight to protect his privacy.
I refuse to be fodder to journalism.
And as he records a new album that reflects his return from the dark times.
They're never gonna take me down. You can't kill ambition, and I still want fame. I like what I am. I like where I am. I like what I do. I like who I am. The thing is, the privacy here is so terrific. Absolutely fantastic. From wherever you walk now, I'm free of people with cameras pointing at me and things like that until today. At 17 and a half, my record went to #2. Before I was 20, I'd had a couple of #1s. Within 3 years, I recognized that my private life was almost gone. And so coming to a place like this allowed me to escape. I'm secluded. I have about 30 acres around me with the vines growing, and I have to take my privacy now whenever I can grab it. Hi. Everything that's happened that's been important has happened here. And so even in the darkest moments of my life, I was here.
Sir Cliff Richard spends much of his time here in his home in Portugal. This is a landmark year for Cliff, his 60th in show business.
So that's Leonie. Happy 70th
Leonie?
birthday.
Oh, okay. Happy 70th.
There's a lot of those.
He has spent the last 5 mornings signing photos for his most loyal fans.
And this is lovely. This is a retirement card for somebody. Carmel.
Is it actually Carmel? C-A-R-M-E-L.
Yeah.
Cliff values his privacy in Portugal, but today he is opening the doors to the public. He is hosting a special event at the winery he owns, close to his home.
For the last few years, I've been doing a wine signing, and we thought we'd get the usual 600 or 700 people, but 1,400 people are coming.
I got up at 2:45 this morning.
I've followed him since I was 15, and I'm not telling you how old I am now.
I think the Cliff fans are legendary because they live their life almost around Cliff's life.
We got married on Friday.
Yeah.
This is our honeymoon.
We basically organised the wedding around
Cliff
because Tracy is a huge Cliff fan.
Yeah.
Although Cliff is opening the doors to his trusted fans, he's become aware of the wider public's appetite for gossip and rumour.
I talked to my lawyers about, I said, what do I do about what people say about me on the internet? They said, get used to it, you're a celebrity. Well, I didn't become a celebrity, I didn't become a singer to have people say all sorts of crap about me publicly. And so it's very unnerving.
In August 2014, Cliff was in Portugal when he had a phone call which was to change his life forever. He heard his home in Berkshire was being raided by South Yorkshire police.
The phone rang, and it was the people that managed my apartment block. And they said, police are outside your apartment. What do I do about it? And I said, please, they have a warrant. You must let them in. But I didn't know how deeply disturbing it would be until I actually heard what the accusation was.
A search warrant has been granted after police received an allegation of a sexual nature dating back to the 1980s. This involved a young boy under the age of 16 years.
It shook me rigid, I have to say. I can't explain how bad it felt.
When I first heard, I was shocked because I have never seen Cliff act inappropriately with anyone.
For Cliff, things were about to go from bad to worse. The BBC had prior knowledge the raid was about to take place. They made the decision to name Cliff and broadcast the search live as breaking news.
I throw myself into the lap of the BBC and say, you have known me for 60 years. I do not have any hint of that kind of activity in my background. None at all. If I was a pedophile, there's no way I could hide it for 60 years, for crying out loud. It's impossible.
As a former newspaper editor and a former BBC executive, I can't believe this is happening. This is so wrong.
It's in the public interest to know what the police are up to. I defy any newsroom, any editor, any news editor in the country not to have run the story had they had the information that Cliff Richard's house was about to be raided. It was a great scoop. Even then, though, looking at those shots from the helicopter into his house, I think that crossed the line.
For the next 2 years, Cliff had to live with the uncertainty of not knowing whether the police would press charges.
I think Cliff Richard thought that he had constructed a wall around his private life. And I think the fact that his privacy was invaded was like a physical attack on him.
I know he didn't sleep. He would tell himself he hasn't slept for 4 years.
I thought I was going to die. Supposing I have a heart attack. I had shingles. I don't think I slept more than average 2 hours a night.
Cliff's been through stuff which would break many a man, to be accused of stuff you're not guilty of and have that kind of smear on you, I can't imagine how hurt he must have been.
Not only was I not charged, I was never even arrested. If they hadn't named me, I'd have survived it much more easily and perhaps even forgot about it later in life, but I'm not going to forget it now.
When the allegation first broke, Cliff limited his appearances.
Hello.
Now, age 78, he's throwing himself fully back into the public arena. Cliff's army of dedicated fans have stuck by him through his toughest times.
I'm a Christian. I prayed for him every night to give him strength, as did a lot of other people.
Worst thing to happen to a lovely man that I've loved for 41 years.
And it was just traumatic, not just for him, for his fans.
All ready and ready to go.
Just don't forget you need to be the one to tell him about the photographs.
Oh, I will. I'll tell him.
I'm just reminding you that needs to be said by you rather than anybody else.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I can't believe it. What are you doing here? Can you hear my guitar? Oh, tough luck. The young ones, well, darling, we're the young ones. And young ones shouldn't be afraid to live long while the flame is strong. For we may not be the young ones very long. Can you quieten down? I can't hear me.
Tomorrow, why wait until tomorrow?
Cliff's 60 years in show business began with unprecedented success with his backing group, The Shadows, who together dominated the British music scene in the late 50s and early 60s.
There's a song to be sung, and the best time is to sing it while we're young. Once in every lifetime.
Some of these fans have been with him from the very beginning.
I need you, you need me. Oh, my darling, can't you see that you're...
Fortunately for me, my fans have grown up with me. They've stuck with me, and that's something I guess is special. That means a great deal to me, and particularly with what I've been through.
Darling, that we'll teach the young ones of our own.
Thank you, thank you. I can't believe... Do you love me? Well, I mean, you know, I don't blame you.
A grateful Cliff is not only giving a performance, he has agreed to have an individual photo taken with all 1,400 fans.
I talked to Dan, the photographer, said, please make it really quick picture, otherwise we won't get through.
Now we've got a group of disabled ladies, but if you can stand behind them, because the surface is quite unstable now, first of all, and then we get those pictures done, and then they can go and get some refreshments.
All right. Okay.
Walter, when they're done, can you make sure they...
Got it, okay.
I think he's the sort of performer that inspires loyalty because he's kind of loyal to his fans, and his fans feel that they should be loyal to him.
Oh, I'll come there. Don't worry, that's enough. I'll come here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, okay, great, thank you.
There is an area where you don't penetrate, you know, there is a private Cliff as well, which is what makes people intrigued. Like, well, what's he like when he's not signing autographs and not in concert?
There's always been interest in Cliff's private life. The fact Cliff's never been married, the fact he's a bachelor, you know, that's an added element to it.
He said, like, you know, the secrets I'll take to the grave with me. Naturally, makes people think, well, what are those secrets, you know?
Hello, how are you?
As Cliff reconnects with his fans, the result of a landmark court case hangs over him. He decided to risk millions of his own money by suing both the South Yorkshire Police and the BBC for invasion of privacy. Cliff has an unsettling summer ahead as he waits for the judgment.
What I wanted an apology for, and I got this from the South Yorkshire Police, they publicly in court said, we are so sorry that we caused Sir Cliff such unnecessary stress. I can't tell you how good that made me feel. I mean, and I wanted that. That's what I needed. I needed them to say, we're so sorry.
Secret Rose Christmas Set by Seconda. Sponsors: Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
Cliff Richard. Rise Up. A sensational collection of brand new songs. Celebrating an incredible 60 years in music. Cliff Richard. Rise Up, the album, the perfect gift for Christmas.
What comes as standard?
They're standard.
Alloy wheels? We can add those.
Heated seats?
With the cold weather pack only.
A 7-inch touchscreen as standard.
Air conditioning?
No. So everything's included?
Yeah. The Corsa Griffin comes with a whole host of extras as standard.
Vauxhall Corsa Griffin. All Griffin, no bull.
I always let them know I'm on my way. It's part of the fun. They just want to know I'm coming home. They follow that little car right to our front door. I don't know who gets more excited that I'll be home for bedtime. Them or me.
Every hour of every day, be the man of today. Boss Bottled.
If you look
your style this Christmas with Amazon, with low prices and free delivery on millions of items, like Tony and Guy hair products, the Remington Prolux hairdryer, and dresses from Truth and Fable. For everything you need this Christmas, visit Amazon.
He knew this day would come. All that hard work is about to pay off. Upload your CV on Indeed.
When heavy cold or flu strikes, ask your Boots pharmacist for day and night nurse. Pharmacy strength cold and flu relief. It's specially formulated to provide 24-hour relief. Day nurse provides non-drowsy relief from symptoms such as aches and pains, sore throat and blocked nose, while night nurse tackles runny nose, shivers and cough, helping you get a good night's sleep. For 24-hour cold and flu relief, try Day and Night Nurse. The Day and Night Nurse range available at Boots.
Turkey. Now what?
Well, there's always party food. Selected items now 3 for $2 in the chilled aisle at Tesco.
It was exactly 25 years ago I found myself taking the cameras out of the theatres and into the world. And I'm still discovering thrilling new stuff around every corner now I've pitched up in Florida. The world's a joyous place.
Join Billy Connolly on his ultimate world tour, Thursday at 9 on ITV. Secret Rose Christmas Set by Seconda. Sponsors, Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
Sir Cliff Richard is celebrating 60 years in show business. He's at his Portugal home with youngest sister Joan.
Oh, look at Jackie with your car.
Oh, that's the first
the
car I
Sunbeam
ever had.
Alpine.
The Sunbeam Alpine.
Yeah.
Cliff is still waiting for the outcome of his case against the BBC for invasion of privacy. His family have been there for him throughout his ordeal.
I mean, to be honest, I wasn't even sure Cliff was going to pull through it. I was really worried about you.
When my heart was pumping and I'd wake up at 3 o'clock, I thought I might have a stroke.
Anything like that. It was just, that was worrying. I mean, with all the courts, it's like it all comes back again.
Cliff was born in India, but he, Joan, and their other 2 sisters grew up in Cheshunt in Hertfordshire, where they lived just after the war.
We came back to England in 1948, and so there was no jobs around, and we had a fairly good life, even though we were pretty well poverty-stricken.
Oh, he's a lovely brother, actually. I don't like saying it because, you know, we don't each other.
She doesn't often tell the truth, but
No.
today it's a good day.
Yeah, you've caught me on a good day. Actually, you've always looked after me because Dad died when I was so young.
I know, funny enough, it's...
You've always looked after me.
Tragically, Cliff's father Roger died when Cliff was only 21.
When he died, I suddenly became the breadwinner.
Yeah, and you were the one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Look at Mum's
I know,
face.
look at her. Yeah, no, she was always very serious, wasn't she? Yeah. She didn't like smiling. She called me Cliff, but when she got dementia, I became that Cliff Richard. And one time when we out, I had a beard on for Heathcliff.
For Heathcliff, that's right. We took her
And
out.
she totally ignored me. And then she turned away and I put my napkin around and covered up like that. And she went, "Oh, you look just like that Cliff Richard." That Cliff Richard. She was very proud. And Dad was too, but he missed the best of things. Do you know, I haven't had my favourite dream for ages now. I dream sometimes that Dad's alive. Now the thing is, the funny thing in the dream, we know he's not there anymore. We know he died. But everyone just goes, "Oh, it's your father, he's dead." And I always wake up really calm and really happy. Yeah, and I haven't had it for ages. But I just love that dream. And when I'm in trouble, I wish I could have it, but I don't.
Cliff's father only saw the beginning of his career. Today, he may have a clean-cut image, but when it all began, he was a rock and roll heartthrob. In the late 1950s, he frequented a bar in London's Soho, which became synonymous with a new, cutting-edge form of music.
The Two Eyes coffee shop was a place in Soho, in Old Compton Street, and everybody congregated to the Two Eyes, because that's where rock and roll really started.
Cliff's big break was when he and his first band, the Drifters, were talent spotted and given the opportunity to record their first single, Move It.
Come on, buddy, baby, let's move it out, move it. Yeah. Well, shake a baby, shake on it, we don't lose it.
Is the first real British rock and roll hit.
It's a historic record. It's a turning point for British popular music.
I don't think Cliff was particularly marketed as the British Elvis. Everyone compared him to Elvis.
In England, we had Cliff Richards, and there was nothing closer to Elvis than that.
Elvis was my hero. He's the one that I dreamed about, wanting to be him.
When Cliff joined up with the Shadows in 1958, they quickly produced a string of hits.
It was apparent to Bruce and I that he had something special. We could see it straight away in the rehearsal.
A shooting star will shoot you and Mars will go to war.
We just weren't ready for the audience response. I mean, as soon as Cliff's name was mentioned, the audience went nuts. The screaming was... And quite honestly, we couldn't hear ourselves play.
The factor that I had Hank, Bruce and Brian with me, it's immeasurable. You can't imagine what it was like in those days. We were joined at the hip, really. I mean, and in the early days, we couldn't afford to stay in hotels when we were on that first tour, and we just lived together. Sometimes we slept together. Sometimes it was only 4 beds or 3 beds, and we shared beds.
I got myself a crying.
Very soon, Cliff and the Shadows moved from a teenage audience to the mainstream.
Cliff made one of the greatest pop records ever made, which was Living Doll.
His audience expanded from being a teenage audience to a huge audience, from kids to grandparents, overnight.
He was clean cut, he was the boy next door, and he had this enormous charm.
Well, I was living in England, and you could not have not heard about Cliff. I mean, he was a huge star.
Just before the Beatles, he was Britain's greatest solo male rock and roll star.
Not only was Cliff enjoying hit after hit, he quickly became sought after by movie producers, keen to cash in on his success.
He made The Young Ones, which the Shadows were in, so Cliff suddenly became a film star as well.
It was expected to be a film premiere such as the West End had never seen before. Police said it would be dangerous for Cliff to leave his car. Never mind, the fans let themselves go.
People forget that both The Young Ones and Summer Holiday were good family films. You know, better than good, very good.
Even in the early days, Cliff was aware of the importance of keeping certain things out of the public arena.
I can remember the first time I had a girlfriend. It was really early. We came out of the Finsbury Park Empire, and you know, people always said to me, "Don't talk about girlfriends. You're going to lose your fans." Anyway, I remember coming out, and this current girlfriend sat on my lap at the front of the car, and I turned around to wave, and the fans had thrown the programs on the floor and were stamping on them with their feet. Well, that frightened the life out of me. So that changed things.
Cliff Richard came with his mother.
There's no denying that Cliff was really sexy looking, and yet he was unattainable. He was just like a gorgeous love object that they weren't going to have sex with.
Today, Cliff is back where it all started, London's Abbey Road Studios. It was here he recorded his breakout hit, Move It, 60 years ago.
Oh, welcome to my beautiful home.
He's arrived to take part in an interview with his good friend, Paul Gambaccini.
Are we okay just to kick off with why we're back in where we are?
It's Cliff and Paul, take one.
Why are we here?
It's 60 years.
Oh, 60 years, okay.
Cliff Richard, welcome to my beautiful home.
Oh, thank you very much.
Actually, I can't pretend it isn't my beautiful home.
It was mine, though.
It was yours. It's Abbey Road Studios, where
It is.
60 years ago you
Yes.
recorded your first hit, Move It.
When I started, I was 17 when I first came and stood at Studio 2 just across the corridor. And so in those days, people thought that I was an answer to Elvis. They didn't realize that Elvis was not a question. When we were young, the Shadows and I could barely believe that we'd actually grow to be 60 years old, let alone have a career that's 60 years. So yeah, I am incredibly grateful. The fans have kept me running. I hope I've not let them down at any time.
As Cliff continues to celebrate his 60-year milestone, he is still awaiting the result of his case for invasion of privacy.
We're still waiting for the judgment.
Yeah, when? Do you know when?
No, we don't know. We can't. And even if I knew now, I might know now, but I'm not allowed to tell you. Yeah. But if I'm smiling a lot, no, it could take 3 months, which means it's still another month to go.
In difficult moments like this, Cliff turns to the one thing that is always there for him.
His Christianity is very important to him. And I know that during his recent court case and the 4 years of torture, he prayed every single day.
I didn't have anyone else to talk to the way I can talk to God. You know, as I say, my friends were there. Some of my best friends were there. And I tried to explain to them, yeah, I feel this. But in the end, you can't express it. And with God, you don't have to be able to express it. I believe he knows what you're feeling. He's going through what you're going through.
In the mid-60s, when Cliff was at the height of his fame, he risked his rock and roll credibility by openly embracing Christianity.
The first time I ever made it public was in 1966, I believe, when Billy Graham came over to the Earl's Court in London. And we got this message saying, we've heard that Cliff is a Christian, and would he speak at it? And I said, oh my goodness. And it was really early on in my Christian life. I think it was 1963 or 64 that I'd actually just said to myself, okay, you know, make the change in me.
I'm simply a messenger, but his message says, thy sins are forgiven because of what Christ did on that cross.
What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and grief to bear.
At that time, he could have either said he was gay or come out as a Christian, and both would have had a ghastly effect on his career. And he chose to come out as a Christian, and it was a brave thing to do.
What peace we often forfeit.
I thought it was, personally, I thought it was suicide.
You know, it's really easy to believe in Jesus as a sort of Superman hero. It's another whole thing, though, to believe in him as the Son of God.
I think he probably overdid it a little bit on some of his live shows when he started to include some gospel kind of music that a lot of the audience didn't expect and probably didn't want.
Jesus, and rock and roll, can never go together.
The rock star is a very rebellious kind of creature, you know, and he's kind of scornful of the morals of the time, whatever, you know. And for Cliff to cast himself in that role but still maintain his you know, open faith, I think is a hard thing to pull off.
Not having that image of sex, drugs, and rock and roll obviously didn't hinder him because I think he managed to have that sexy image without the stuff that supposedly goes with it.
Cliff's faith has remained a big part of his life for over 5 decades. In fact, it's formed the basis of his 18-year friendship with ex-Catholic priest John McKellen, whom he now shares a home with.
I enjoyed meeting John because he was a priest, and therefore I felt there's a spiritual connection, and I can talk to him about anything. You need somebody that's solid.
There are rumors and innuendo about everybody's private life, and Cliff is no exception.
I mean, people would say, well, he's not married, he's never been married, and then he shared a house with John, therefore that must be a gay relationship. Unless Cliff came out and said that was the case, you're just left with sort of speculation.
I think the media was so fixated on his love life, and I think they become obsessed. And I think he did a really good job of keeping his business to himself, because the more you didn't know, the more everyone wanted to know.
When people ask him about his sexuality and they say, you know, you're an enigma, then Cliff says, oh, I like that.
I quite like the word enigma. You know, I don't see why people should know everything about you. Sometimes journalists who you've never met will ask you the most impertinent questions. And I've often said, you're kidding, aren't you? My best friends don't ask me that. I don't even know who you are. I'm not going to answer a question like that. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's about sexuality or anything. If I feel it's too personal, then I say so.
What no one wants to admit is that maybe Cliff was never interested in sex. There's the paradox. Maybe he looked really sexy, but he wasn't interested in sex.
I don't think he sacrificed anything. I think he's very happy in his life.
If you look back at his interest in Christianity and how it took over his life, you can see how maybe carnal sin wasn't the number one thing on his mind all the time.
Cliff has always tried to keep certain aspects of his life private. However, he is now throwing himself fully back into the public eye by recording and promoting a brand new album.
Can you give me more volume? If you could give me a bit more level on the track.
The truth is, baby, you deserve the best.
He hasn't had a #1 for over 10 years.
Cliff, that's great. Should we do another one exactly the same?
I haven't made an original album for 14 years. And this is the first time I've been able to sing brand new songs. I'm back where I'm meant to be. This is what I do. I like it.
Love's the gift.
Cliff's new album is called Rise Up, a record which reflects his recent difficulties.
They're never gonna break me down. They're never gonna take me down. You know I'm gonna rise up feeling stronger.
It's strange, really, that I've had to have the 4 bad years before somebody said, let's do an album of brand new songs. Because I'd got into the fact that, it is difficult to get airplay for people like myself, and therefore we're less and less likely to record brand new original material. It has a significance in that I am starting again, and I haven't been broken down, and I have a new album.
I'm coming alive.
And I'm reborn recording-wise. I mean, my career, I didn't know that I was ever going to do this again. I thought those days were way behind me, that I'd go in with brand new songs, but no, it wasn't behind me. Which one of these marks? Over the Brievo, okay.
With a brand new album ready to release, Cliff is hoping to put the turbulent last few years behind him.
You can't do it. I couldn't have done it without going.
I hope it is a new, fresh start for him. And I hope that he will eventually be able to put those 4 years out of his mind.
Hope that's it.
Deep down, will he ever wipe it completely? I'm not so sure.
Secret Rose Christmas Set by Seconda. Sponsors: Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private. It's the season to shine bright every night with Elnet by L'Oréal Paris. Wrapping gifts and top knots with a touch of shimmer and shine. Then brush out and make waves for all those extra special nights. Elnet by L'Oréal Paris. It's your time to shine.
Have fun.
There's never a good time for the internet to go down. But with BT Plus, let us know and we'll send a 4G mini hub to get you back in the game. BT, be there.
Need some dinner time inspiration, George? 4 words for you. Aunt Bessie's Yorkshire puddings and crispy roast potatoes. I see your bike and I raise you a horse, Georgie! Dinner time glory awaits! Whoa, bit dangerous. Aunt Bessie's. Bring out the Bessie in you.
Do you feel the call? Black Opium, the Eau de Parfum, Yves Saint Laurent. This Christmas, order online by 8 p.m. and collect for free from midday the next day at Boots.
I'm going back to
This is Roy Orbison with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Unchained Melodies, the new album.
Oh, yes, I'm the great pretender.
Stunning new arrangements, produced by the Orbison family. Roy Orbison, Unchained Melodies, the new album out now.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should.
Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. But you were always on my mind. You were always on my mind.
Every year I'm in charge of the table. I chose this one 2-3 months ago when I was shopping in Dunelm. I was back there a week later. It's just perfect for my table.
60 seconds for a toothpaste to work is pretty remarkable. Nobody wants to have sensitive teeth.
We don't have time to wait for results.
There's an easy, quick solution.
I recommend Sensodyne Rapid Relief.
It's clinically proven to work within 60 seconds.
Just 1 minute.
Patients will love it.
If I can get people out of pain quicker, why wouldn't I recommend it?
I gotta get out of here. What am I looking for? I can feel it. It's magic. Sauvage. Nero de parfum. Neo.
The Voice returns this January on ITV.
Secret Rose Christmas Set by Seconda. Sponsors Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
Sir Cliff Richard is celebrating a landmark year, his 60th anniversary in show business. Today, he is recording a TV advert to promote his new album, Rise Up. He hopes this will help to relaunch his career.
I chose this colour because the very first Elvis album was a black and white picture, and it had Elvis Presley in green, pink and green.
Yeah.
And I've used that font as well on most of my albums, actually, because he was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah.
Well, for our generation, really, it kicked it all off.
The Clash used that as well,
didn't they?
For
did they?
London's Calling. Yeah, it was the same.
Oh, really?
I think it was someone smashing
They were long
a
after
guitar.
me, though.
Yeah, it was.
Standing by, everyone. Rise up.
It's not like the good old days where we sold hundreds of thousands of records a week. It's different now. People don't really buy records very much. People, if they're interested, will come and see you on tour.
That was great.
Do we have charts now?
Yes. Streaming chart counts for something else.
Well, streaming charts are of no value.
No, they are. It does count. It does count.
The charts seem to be so broken up. And I asked someone today, well, is there a chart? And they said, yes, there is. Oh, there's a streaming chart? I said, well, I'm not going to get streamed, I don't think. And so it's difficult to know. I'm hoping that someone will tell me Rise Up has just entered the charts. It would be great if it did. This is easy to twirl on. And it helps if you wear leather shoes. I and a number of other artists who have survived the years, I think our age is a plus because we've done it before. We know how to deal with situations and we still want. So if you want to be known by people, you have to go and say hello to them. It's just that you can't kill ambition.
Cliff hopes his album will help propel him back into the charts. However, this is not the first time he has had to rebuild his public image.
I think the late 60s and the early 70s are not the high point of Cliff's career. There was a definite kind of creative lull.
Holla to the boys that played rock and roll, made my life so sweet.
By that time also he was not only not cool, but a lot of people really didn't like him, particularly on the music press. He was kind of an object of derision, you could say.
Power to all our friends, to the music that never ends.
At that point, he was really a family entertainer.
Baby, power to you and me.
It wasn't until Bruce Welch produced an album called I'm Nearly Famous that Cliff got back on track.
The album came out. We had 3 hits from it straight away. Devil Woman being the biggest.
I've had nothing but bad luck since the day I saw the cat at my door.
Well, Devil Woman, I think, was the biggest hit he had in America. In some ways, you sort of don't associate that song with the sort of thing that Cliff would normally sing. But I think the fact that he could sing it and bring it off like that shows, how versatile he can be.
With I'm Nearly Famous, he was completely reinvented as a hipper artist than he'd ever been, because it was like he was a new artist.
She's just a devil woman with evil on her mind. Beware the devil woman, she's gonna get you.
The next generation that was coming up were tuning in to Cliff.
It gave his career a colossal boost, and he began playing stadiums and things again. He reached out to a new audience and reminded his old audience that he was still good.
From 1976, and certainly all through the 80s, was on a roll.
In the 80s and 90s, Cliff re-established himself as a household name with catchy Christmas hits.
On the Savior's Day.
You hear all of these amazing songs, and people know it's genuine. It's who he is, and they're beautiful songs.
I don't particularly like Christmas songs very much. I think it's just a big commercial excuse, isn't it?
He's calling you on the Savior's Day.
In 1995, Cliff received a knighthood for his charity work.
He wasn't knighted because he was Cliff Richard, the pop star. He got knighted for charity work, being a Christian and being a good guy.
I think my knighthood is probably the culmination of everything because I could never have expected it. That's the whole thing.
The year after, an impromptu Wimbledon performance not only etched him into national folklore, but showed he could entertain a crowd without the need of a backing group.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Richard.
Cliff has now become a feature of the tennis championship for over 20 years.
I'm not going to go across the common. I'll go back up there and turn left.
But sadly for Cliff, after he was falsely accused of a sexual offence, he felt unable to attend the tournament for 2 years running.
It's very difficult for me to expect to go somewhere public and not be recognised. I mean, whether people like me or not, it doesn't matter. Whether they like my music or not, it doesn't matter. I've been around so long, probably most of them since they were children have heard my name. Parents or grandparents have played records. So, but they're usually pretty nice. Heavy old doors. Paul. Oh my goodness. You guys deserve this.
Bless you.
Thank you so
very much
Thanks,
indeed
Paul.
for all your help.
Okay, no, thank you for your help. Thank you. They work really hard for us and make everything really easy for us to get in and out. So I just assume they like a drink now and then, but they don't drink on duty. They'll take it home.
Today, Cliff is meeting up with his sister Jackie and her family before he goes into the members area. Cliff hates to miss this very public event, but it means facing the full glare of the press and attention from fans.
Hi there, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
It's just being out in the public that I still feel vulnerable. Not afraid, just vulnerable. Hello, yes, please do. How are you? Yeah, okay. Beautiful, thank you. Thank you.
The saddest thing that I heard Cliff say, actually, during all of this is that I will never, ever put my arms around young people again when I'm having photographs taken. And I thought that was very sad.
I'm careful if people ask me to have pictures taken with their children. From Centre Court, I walked through a tunnel and came up by my seats on Court 1. But since what happened to me, I haven't gone down there because that tunnel is right by the ball boys' dressing room. And I cannot bring myself to be anywhere like that on my own.
6 months ago, Cliff made an emotional appearance in court as he sought damages against the BBC. Today is the day of the verdict. Almost 4 years since Cliff's life was turned upside down.
So Cliff Richard is due any minute to hear whether or not he has been successful in his battle against the BBC.
I refuse to be fodder to journalism. And that's all we are sometimes.
All eyes are on this verdict. Many fear that a Cliff win would mean that the press would be forbidden to report on police activity prior to a suspect being charged.
I think there's a bigger picture here about the police being accountable in a democratic society. I think the public have a right to know that's happening.
They feel they have the right of freedom of speech, which is absolutely correct. They do have the freedom of the speech, but they don't have the freedom to abuse it, and they abuse it over and over and over again.
Cliff hopes the judgment will bring to an end the most difficult chapter in his life.
Secret Rose Christmas Set by Seconda. Sponsors: Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
I'm alive, and I'm seeing things mighty clear today. I'm alive. I'm alive, and I'm sitting here yelling and doing my thing. I'm alive.
Oh, come on, it's not Christmas without the pond.
No, it's about chocolate and caramel trees.
However you do Christmas, everyone's welcome at Tesco.
All the quality of Albert Bartlett. All the convenience of Frozen.
What is it? It's a videotape recorder, isn't it? This thing will record all your favourite programmes for you. You stupid boy. Do we get a Christmas tree? Indeed you do. A door in the face.
So, it's a Merry Christmas from me, and it's a Happy New Year from him. Good night.
It's Christmas!
Schwartz will add a twist to your Christmas for flavours that feel sensational. Spice up your senses. Schwartz.
Don't worry, it's not too late. There are still loads of last-minute gifts available at Amazon, with offers in every department, low prices, and free delivery on millions of items. Amazon's last-minute Christmas deals, the 6th to the 21st of December.
Check your tickets. You might now be a millionaire.
This Christmas, get them something that says you get them, with better than half price on electrical beauty at Boots.
What musical? We're back in 2019 with a brand new show. The multi-award-winning Mrs. Brown's Boys bring you Mrs. Brown's Boys, the musical. Coming to Birmingham. Tickets now on sale.
Dreamboats and Petticoats returns with the golden years. 100 wonderful tracks.
How do you do what you do to
From a
me?
time of magic.
He's so fine.
Dreamboats and Petticoats, the golden years.
Come on, pretty baby, let's
The #1 album.
I saw the life inside, so shine bright tonight. You and I, shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a
Who will you make happy today?
La Vie est belle, the iconic fragrance.
stars arrive in style for a night of incredible entertainment.
The Royal Variety Performance 2018!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
The Royal Variety Performance 2018, tomorrow at 7:30 on ITV.
Secret Rose Christmas Set by Secomda. Sponsors, Sir Cliff Richard, 60 years in public and in private.
Sir Cliff Richard has arrived at court to hear the judgment of his case against the BBC. He has gambled millions of his own money and his reputation to fight what he believes is press and police intrusion.
He was very tenacious in the fact that he was going to go to court. He was determined that he was going to fight that total invasion of his privacy.
After months of waiting, the verdict has at last been announced.
The judge told the court this morning that Cliff Richard has won substantial damages and that the BBC infringed his privacy rights without justification.
Good morning, everyone. Sir Cliff is, of course, very pleased with the court's judgment today, in which the judge concluded that, and I quote, the BBC went in for an invasion of Sir Cliff's privacy rights in a big way.
When I heard the judgment in court, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't punch the air. I just felt, okay, justice. And when it comes to the BBC, I didn't want to go, BBC. I just thought, well, they've lost, and that's probably painful enough for them.
I can't really answer too many questions at the moment. It's going to take a little while for me to get over the whole emotional factor, and so I hope you'll forgive me. I'll talk to you some other time. Thank you very much.
Well done! We love you!
No one is more delighted with the judgment than Cliff's ever-loyal fans.
We're elated. I'm totally elated for him.
It's fantastic news. I'm over the moon. We did a good drink after to celebrate as well.
Congratulations and celebrations. I want the world to know I'm happy as can be.
An emotional Cliff can at last unwind at a nearby hotel.
So, they've got a very nice bar here.
Have they? Should we go there?
Yeah, we need to lift a glass and say cheers.
I think so.
Now this chapter of his life is over, Cliff can finally focus on his career. He's at the start of an 11-date UK tour, and tonight he's in Newcastle. Although he is 2 years off his 80th birthday, a reinvigorated Cliff shows no signs of slowing down.
When I'm in Portugal, I play 3 times a week. Oh, I want to play tennis on my 100th birthday. Well, I mean, when I was 50, everybody's going, oh my God, 50. And I said, well, that day I said, nothing's changed. I'm going to play tennis when I'm in my 70s. Well, here I am.
That's not very nice.
It does set me up. And so any day, I mean, even today, I've got a concert tonight. And I don't feel bad about it. I'm not worried about it. I think I'll go home, have a little lie down for a while, have some soup or something for lunch, and I'll be ready for sound check.
With the game over, Cliff's security feel they need to get him out of the building without being mobbed by waiting fans.
Cliff, before we go, when you get changed, we're going to take another route out because the crowds are outside the front.
Hello.
Yeah, get your boobs out, girls.
Through the cracks. What's that?
Have you had wonderful days off?
Oh, very nice, thank you. How was yours?
I went for dinner with my lawyers. Oh, and they paid.
Oh, hey, that is a win for everyone.
That was the trouble. No, it was a celebration dinner for our court case. Yeah, it's really nice.
Tonight, Cliff will perform to a sold-out crowd. He hopes this tour will put him back in the public eye for the right reasons. However, Cliff may never shake off the rumours that follow him.
The minute you come into our industry, the public are interested in you. Not just your music, they are interested in you. The only thing that you have to be sure of, that you only tell them what you want them to know. I don't see why people should know everything about you. And in fact, there are certain people that will never know everything about me.
I think that Cliff will go to his grave an enigma. He will have done it very successfully. He's a bit like, the Mona Lisa of pop music, if you like. We don't know a lot about him.
We're all going on a summer holiday. No more waiting for us.
He's private. He's a private person, and so he should be.
His life's his own, nobody else's. And as long as it keeps us happy, that's all we worry about.
We love it!
Cliff will never give up.
No, we won't.
He'll never ever give up. The energy, and he gives us lots of energy as well.
Yes.
And that's why we love him so much.
Yes.
He is. He's the one. We love him.
Cliff has faced many challenges throughout his 60 years, but it seems he still has the determination to carry on performing for as long as possible.
He has the same passion now as he had when I met him 60 years ago.
I don't really know what the future holds for me in terms of how long I can go on. I could be 100, couldn't I? I mean, I don't know. But you can never know what's around the corner.
Cliff has enjoyed a career which has seen success over 6 decades as one of the biggest selling artists the country has ever produced.
There's always a tendency in the press to want to write people off. And I think people have tried to write Cliff off a lot at various times in the past, but they never quite managed it, did they?
There'll never be another Cliff Richard. There will never be anyone who has 130 or 140 hits over 60 years.
60 years in show business is impossible for most people. I mean, they get into show business, maybe they have 2 good years, but Cliff Richard, 60 years, come on.
I think Sir Cliff being in the public eye for that long speaks volumes about who he is.
Despite a glittering career, his recent ordeal will undoubtedly be hard for him to forget.
They have given me something that I can never, ever be free of. Ever. I will never forget what I saw on television, and I'll never forget what it's all about.
He's come out the other side of it, hopefully, with his head held high and his dignity intact.
I wouldn't change anything. I like what I am. I like where I am. I like what I do. I like who I am.
Take that, Lost Voice Guy and Cirque du Soleil join the star-studded lineup for the Royal Variety Performance 2018 tomorrow evening at 7:30. Then on Thursday evening, Scottish funnyman Billy Connolly takes us around his new home of Florida, the latest stop on his ultimate world tour at 9.
And that's the way to stay. Son, you be your bachelor boy until your dying day.
Sponsored by Seconda.
Coming up from Westminster, the big Brexit climb down. Mrs May postpones the vote on her deal, hoping for EU help.